24 elected senators agree that we must uphold the arbitral ruling of 2016 unequivocally. There is no question about that. In fact, I am one of 4 authors in the Maritime Zone Act, which I believe is also going to be co-authored by Senator Tolentino.
Unfortunately, all our discussions bilaterally have not been successful.
That's not true, Mr. President.
Well, during your time, yes. During your time, yes.
I will tell you the reasons why behind closed doors. Just give you one good reason why. Ang pinakamasama kasi is yung mga nakikinig sa atin sa kabilang side, alam yung strategy natin. So marami akong dapat isasagot sa inyo.
Yes.
Hindi ko masagot dito because hindi dapat sa publiko. It's not because it's confidential or it's backroom, but just because, you know, parang chess or basketball, tapos yung camera, yung coach, ganito gagawin natin, ha. So if you know, if I may appeal to our colleagues, let's have a short caucus just to discuss it. And of course, kung yun ang gusto ng majority, then we will submit. But at least mapag-usapan natin behind closed doors the implications of not being in sync with the strategy of the president. No? And in this issue, there's no majority-minority with the president. It's Philippine interest.
Although the Senate has stood ground many times by tradition,
Yes.
not always in sync with the executive.
That's true, Mr. President.
The
But
issue of the
independent
VFA,
institution.
when the former president had canceled the VFA, we in the Senate stood.
yes, Mr. President.
pat,
But that
had
did
the-
not weaken our position. But in this case, if we are not in sync, kung sasabihin natin ganito gagawin, sasabihin ng presidente, DFA, iba gagawin yung ambassador, as a former secretary of DFA, I
understand your position as a former secretary.
So we should
or the
strengthen the
party.
position of the country. And I disagree with the president on some issues. I might disagree with him on the China issue, how to deal with China. But I do believe he was the one elected, and we should at least hear out his people, the National Task Force on the West Philippine Sea and the DFA, so that we know where we're going, di ba?
So what we can do is have an early caucus on Monday to discuss this, and we take it up on plenary. We'll adopt it or amend it. But definitely one thing is for sure. We must condemn this blatant abuse of their bullying tactics against us. We cannot just let this pass.
Mr. President,
I think we're all agreeable to that.
if the resolution
And for the
simply
record,
states
Mr.
that, we can
President.
pass that right now.
President, good
So, Mr.
gentlemen.
President, may I just
I'm
clarify
just,
that one line lang, no?
I'm just following on the last word of the President that the very point of this resolution is to strengthen further the hand of the Philippines na lalo na ngang lumalakas sa panahon ngayon na dumadami yung mga bansa at dumadami yung mga regional formations who are supporting us in our victory at The Hague.
Mr. President, you can be sincere, but you can be sincerely wrong. So what I'm saying is that if the intention is to condemn and to make a stand, unanimous tayo. Pero pag nagsabi ka na ng strategy, dalhin natin sa UN, kailangan pag-usapan yan kasi may historical background at may mga ahensya at mga in charge na nandun.
Question, my dear colleague. Question, what harm will it take?
It could
For us-
unravel all of the negotiations of a president because if the president agreed, I
But
do
the
not know
president
if,
does not have to agree, Your Honor.
No,
Kasi the president will say, we will study it.
well, then China, when we're talking, will say that the Senate wants something else. And so, meaning, Mr. President, if you're dealing with your child, and the child comes with you and sabihin, Daddy, sinabi ni Mami, okay na. And then goes to your Mami, Mami, sabi ni Daddy, okay na. So,
Mr.
of course,
President, good
appealing-
gentlemen,
get
I'm
that-
sorry, it's
No, no.
not as simple as that.
No, it's as
Maybe
simple as
I'm
that.
already-
You know, but Mr. President, I stood before these people, no? And
No, but I know,
and
Mr.
China,
Yes.
seeing that united ang Congress at Presidente makes a big difference from seeing that one part of government wants multilateral, the other one wants bilateral, one wants to go to PCA, other. They understand our democracy. But when it's the institution itself that made a stand, ibang usapan na yon.
But Your
Mr.
Honor,
President.
Your Honor, if I may just
Yes,
finish.
Mr. President.
The one thing I noticed with dealing with our friends in China is that they want to discuss it bilaterally because they want to keep it quiet. Once you take it out to the international community, ayaw po nila yan. Unfortunately, all our discussions bilaterally have not been successful.
That's not true, Mr. President.
Well, during your time, yes.
Judiciary,
During your time, yes.
I will tell you the reasons why behind closed doors. Because there are reasons for that. So my point, Mr. President, once sinabi ni President Bongbong, hindi, dalhin natin sa UN, eto tayo, multilateral, then we're free to agree or disagree and ano. Pero yung uunahan natin siya na hindi pa niya alam, of course, that's our privilege. But sometimes you withhold your privilege because it is better for those who are negotiating. For all I know, the Secretary of Foreign Affairs, because Secretary Manalo is an old hand, very much respected yan around the world, no? And he knows Minister Wang Yi. For all we know, they are renewing ties and they're bringing up certain issues. For all we know, I do not know. That's why I want to know. I want to hear the National Task Force, and I want what Senator Risa is pushing. Actually, they've been consistent. They pushed that during the Aquino administration. They pushed that during the Duterte administration. She might be right, she might be wrong. But it deserves a discussion. That's what I'm saying, Mr. President.
Yeah, I think what would be fair is that we have a caucus about this on Monday, 3 p.m.
Mr. President, with the indulgence of our distinguished colleagues, I'm being scolded by our most senior member of the Senate. That's just a joke, Mr. President. Not scolding.
You're being informed by our
Not scolding, Mr. President. Yeah. But the voice is kind of
this body. Yes.
and body language, Mr. President, is kind of intimidating. Kind of, Mr. President.
We like to
just a joke,
recognize
Mr.
the
President.
permission of course, the last say will be the sponsor because she's being interpolated.
Of course, Mr. President.
But if with her permission, we can recognize Senator Lauren Legarda.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just allow me to state that I was not trying to intimidate the majority leader. That's the last thing I would want to do. I was majority leader more than 20 years ago. I simply wanted to echo and join in the conversation first. All of us in this hall today, Mr. President, 24 elected senators agree that we must uphold the arbitral ruling of 2016 unequivocally. There is no question about that. In fact, I am one of 4 authors in the Maritime Zone Act, which I believe is also going to be co-authored by Senator Tolentino. And I have a 20-page message which will be read in the University of the Philippines in a forum on the UNCLOS, on our arbitral ruling, and on the Maritime Zones Act, and on the Blue Economy Bill, which was included as a priority of the President in the State of the Nation last Monday. What am I saying? All these debates boil down to a full support of the arbitral ruling that the Philippines, of course, must exercise our rights in our exclusive economic zone, must fight for our fisher folks, must fight for freedom of navigation, and we appreciate the support of the international community. I believe that there is a process and a strategy for information dissemination and how to allow other countries to give us greater support. I am reminded by the minority leader that we had supported the DFA in an information, education, and communications campaign on the Hague ruling. So let us join the DFA in this so that every Filipino, not just in Palawan, not just families of fisher folks, would understand the importance of this historic ruling. However, to demand that our Department of Foreign Affairs, or to urge them to do an action that we have not yet fully discussed and comprehensively discussed with them, as well as the National Security Council, as well as perhaps the Coast Guard and other agencies of government. I would want to ensure that the ruling which has been acknowledged by the world in very clear terms, will not be diminished even for half a point. So what am I saying? Hindi po tayo nag-aatubili sa ating pananaw na napakahalaga ang pagpapatupad ng Hague ruling. Ngunit kailangan po ang strategiya ay hindi lahat binabasa o sinasabi sa pampubliko dahil, gaya ng sinabi ni Senator Cayetano, naririnig tayo ng kalaban o yung mga taong naghihimasok sa ating karagatan. And so, I wanted to ask questions of the good sponsor just for elucidation.
Mr.
Oh,
President,
you have the floor.
no, I have to go, so
Yes.
may I just say one line, Madam?
I thought it was...
No, I will yield to you with the
Yes.
permission of the good senator. I just want to end and then resume on Monday if permitted. With my conversation with Senator Bato, no, he's a police commander, no. He will not tell anyone to do an operation na hindi muna niya kinonsult yung commander. So we're asking DFA to file a resolution sa UN, pero hindi pa natin tinatanong yung DFA, tama bang strategy? Kamusta ba ang timpla sa UN? Sino ba kakampi natin sa UN? So yun lang po, sa issue na territory natin to, sovereignty, nagkakaisa po tayo doon. Doon po tayo sa tamang strategy. So if you want to pass the resolution, Mr. President, strongly expressing our outrage with what's happening sa West Philippine Sea, I think unanimous tayo.
Yes.
But baliktarin po natin, baliktarin. If I say the resolution should be, do not file a resolution, you would also disagree. So sa akin lang, Mr. President, let's not go into the strategy without asking the actual people who will bring it to the United
I
Nations.
think the gist of what we are discussing today is how, kung paano po natin condemn niya itong pangyayaring ito at may action na ilalabas. Kasi ako bilang Senate President, marami na po tayong resolution na ipasa, and House Majority Leader, marami na tayong resolution na ipasa. Now, yun lamang po.
Yeah, Mr.
I just
President,
don't want
Mr.
to make it
President.
fall on deaf ear.